Hi, everybody. Welcome to the IC Topic Chat for today, Thursday, November 7th, 2024. It's an exciting day to be an independent consultant, as it is every time we get a chance to get together. Today, we're covering a core topic of time tracking. And the time tracking is just an important topic. That's why it's a core topic, and we cover it every November. And this is probably the third or the fourth time we've covered this over and over again. Um, You can see usually say daylight savings time happens right after the session, but this year, just the way it happened, um, we are we're doing it right after daylight savings time. So if you haven't changed your clocks, I'm sure you can walk around and see clocks still, the old analog clocks that are um, still sharing the old time, unless you're in Arizona, and then you guys don't believe in daylight savings time. You don't have to worry about this. I have clients in Arizona, and it's so weird because they're set meetings that happen every Monday at 4 p.m. now or at 3 p.m. So whatever. So strange. Actually, I kind of prefer it. I like it when we go into normal time. So this would have been a reminder to change your time. So the whole idea here is talking about why you track time. And I can tell you that when I first started my independent consulting practice, I chose not to track my time because I just didn't want to. I felt like this guy here, just why bother? It's not a big deal. If I don't track my time, nobody knows. I'll just get my job done. I would prefer to just not figure that out. It's too much work, too cumbersome. But why would you want to do it? The reason is our time is literally our currency, and frankly, we often are billing by the hour, or we're at least estimating by the hour. And so if you're not tracking your time, um, you don't really know how long it takes you to do things, and so you can't estimate based upon that when you're working with people. Or some people do literally bill by the hour, and so you have to, otherwise you don't really know how much to bill for. So here's some different time tracking tools that people have considered over the years. Um, I can only say that I have experience with Excel, which I think is manual. You figure out your own thing where you literally put in hours, or toggle track. So that's the one here in the middle. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in the middle, toggle track, that the seems to be the standard. I think there are people who have some other experiences, and we'll certainly hear from Jesse Metcalfe in a little bit, and she's going to talk about how she uses different time tracking tools that are more automated. But I use Toggle Track. We have a team of now 17. Starting next week on Wednesday, we'll have our 17th person start, and everybody's in Toggle Track. It used to be just called Toggle, but then they got more sophisticated and started expanding into other things. So we refer to it as Toggle Track now. And this is what it looks like. This is literally my schedule that I cut and paste from this morning. You can see what's going on. It's up. It's kind of a busy day, busy week, because I'm traveling to Chicago. Anybody in Chicago? I'll be there. You might see me walking around downtown over the weekend. So I've already planned in my toggle for what's going to be happening there. This is just a screenshot. I'm not interacting with anything here. We have a holiday that on election day, we follow the SIU Edwardsville, Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville schedule. So we had a holiday, but as it turns out, it's hard to take holidays in the middle of the week when everybody else is not taking holidays. So I worked a little bit, and you can see some of the folks that I worked with over the week and where we're at. And I'm out for the rest of the afternoon right after this IC topic chat. I did the screenshot, well, about an hour, about 45 minutes ago. So that's the little pointer of where I was at that point in time. You can type in things up here. There's actually a little bit above this that you can't see, but you can type in what you were up to and you can put it directly in there. And it's a kind of a situation where you can drag your mouse and you can put your time in. But just to show you what this looks like when you want to do some more work, here's, oops, here's our staff and the hours that they've worked, and you can put in their hourly rate. We have hourly rates and we have billable clients in here. We don't really use this, but it's kind of interesting for the number of hours that they work that were billable. See, these percentages are not very, don't look at those and believe anything there, but they could actually be very interesting to say, hey, this person is 75% um, on chargeable work. We don't really follow our projects that well, but you can see percentage of billable work over time, where I think the dark part is billable and the light part isn't. But this is just different things that you can do within Toggle and any of these packages, which should be able to provide some of that. Some people have done some advanced planning, you can see here in December. Obviously, we're not in December yet, it's November. But this is how I realized that this is an important thing to do. We started tracking time because I had hired one person and then we hired a couple more people. And I said, well, we should probably have a better sense for what we're doing. We can't just run through life without caring about what we're doing. And I said, I had Tom, my coworker, ask me, how much should we charge for that program that we've been doing every year? And I said, I don't know. I think we charged $800 last year. Maybe we should just charge 800. But then I had the realization we'd been tracking time for the previous year. And I said, wait a second, how much time did you spend on it last year? So here's literally what we did. We went back and we looked at it. And this is early days from 2021, a couple years ago. And I said, well, it looks like we spent 15 hours and 45 minutes on it last year in 2021 when I was asking this question. There's the clocked hours. And I said, well, at the time we were billing $125 an hour. I said, well, according to this, maybe we should round up to 16 and charge $2,000. And that was the point in time where I said, oh my God, this totally makes sense because I was ready to charge 800, which was just a number that I pulled out of the sky, just completely random. And I realized we'd spent 16 hours on it. At the time, the billing rate was 125. We're not there anymore. But I said, we should charge 2,000. So he turned around and he charged 2,000. And you know what the client said? Fine, here's $2,000. And I was like, oh my God, that was a $1,200 like realization to me. And from there on, it helped us understand what we should be doing. And so we use all of our time and as far as forecasting what it's going to take to do a project, either with previous clients or current clients or even future clients that we're estimating time for. Here's another thing that we use it for. So Shannon says, how much PTO do I have? And I said, I don't know, check the report. So here's an example of a report. This is mine from a couple years ago when I did this presentation in 2021. But you can see I did a download of CSV of the Toggle report, and I dropped it in here, and there's a lot of calculations. This is just Microsoft Excel, but it helped me understand how many hours I've worked. There's a lot going on in here, but you'll see I created this little report. Again, it's like Excel. It's just simple drop down things. Select my name, and I think, no, it doesn't say it. I thought we'd see it, but you could see I had PTO plus comp hours of 340 hours, which is a lot, and which equated to about 8.5 weeks. But you can see I had used 8.3 hours because at that year particularly, I hardly got any time off. But I was over in hours by 215. But that's the point. I could tell how much time I'd worked. And then we use this for all of our staff. I'm not sharing other people's staff hours, but it's a way for us to track and understand how this works with everybody because we provide time off, paid time off or PTO, and we allow our staff, our coworkers to work more hours than what they're scheduled to do. We try and pay attention to it that they're not overworking themselves. But if they work more hours, then they have comp hours or they've hours that they can use in the future. So if you worked 50 hours this week, you could work 30 hours next week, and it all evens out to 40 hours a week if that's what you're scheduled to do. That's really helpful for us because now we know how people are spending their time, whether they're spending time on certain projects. But this is also something you should be thinking about for yourself. Am I just overworking it? Hey, Jessica Metcalfe, what do you know about time tracking and what are the things that I'm not talking about? So I know I'm going to share this with you, but go ahead, Jesse.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. So I'm excited to talk about some kind of different or unconventional approaches to time tracking. Maybe I'll just start off by saying that when I got started as an independent consultant, time tracking was really challenging for me. It was not something that came naturally. I have, pretty intense ADHD and I bounce between tasks pretty frequently. It is not super common for me to spend, a full hour doing only one thing, unless I have a really tight deadline, then I do my hyper focus really well. But I do a lot of bouncing around between tasks. Everything gets done, but in a little bit more of a flexible way than a lot of folks do. And it wasn't really feasible for me to use something, where I was manually entering how much time I spent on everything, at least not in a way that felt accurate, because really frequently I'm working on one report and I find a really great new icon I haven't used before. And I think, oh, this would look really great on page 16 of that other report I had open earlier this morning. And I'll bounce over to that task. Or even just with working from home, it's pretty common for me to be in the middle of something and, oh, the dog needs to go out. So I step away from my computer. And keeping track of that by hand was really challenging when I first started. And since then, I have discovered automatic time tracking tools, which I'm looking forward to talking to you more about today. I personally use something called Timely. So that's what I'm going to show in the next couple of slides. I'll show you how that program works. But these are some other programs that exist out there as well that do automatic time tracking. Every year when we do this presentation, I say I'm going to try out one of the other ones so I can tell you more about them. But year after year, I end up just sticking with the same system because it works. So I can answer questions about Timely. I have a couple slides about some of the other programs as well. But that's kind of where I hang out and where my comfort zone is. So I think from there we can probably go to the next slide and I can show you. Whoop,
Actually, I
oh,
think
are we
what we've
missing
done in the
the?
past,
Are we going to
Jesse, was
switch
you
screens?
just kind of started showing things on your screen.
I can
I don't
do
have any more
that.
slides
Hold
for you.
on. Okay, 1 second then. I
That's
think I
okay.
have it. Right. Okay. Yep. Okay. So I have the one with the videos then. So let me
And
see if I can share
while we're
my
going, we
screens.
do record this. You'll get our MJ does here, I'll stop sharing. MJ does that is Emily Johnson. Um, does look at that. You took care of it. I don't think I did anything. She does send out a link to everybody who's registered. So there's probably about half the people who registered for this session are. Oh,
Okay.
there we go. Hey, somebody took
Are folks
over.
seeing this
Right,
the full
I've got
screen
crazy things
version?
happening over here. I don't even know what's going on. This is fun. Oh, was this last year's presentation then? Okay.
Yep. Yes,
Oh,
this is the one with a couple more videos.
we do share these recordings back out with everybody. You'll get a link probably tomorrow or on Monday. Usually, what happens.
All right. Okay, so folks are seeing the full screen version here. All right,
Good to
excellent.
go.
Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit about how Timely itself works. So this is the automatic time tracking software that I use. And this is just a video that I put together last year. So what Timely does is it works in the background on your computer and it keeps track of the amount of time you spend in every window, in every file, in every Zoom meeting, and really puts all that data together for you, which is really convenient. So I'll show you over on the right here, it's got this nice list of all the time I spent on this report and that report and this Excel spreadsheet. And it's nice and concise and tells you the number of minutes. And then you can also do a timeline version. And you can see from the pure chaos on this timeline version why I need automatic time tracking, right? There's so many things open at the same time. We're bouncing around between different tasks within, each hour. So the timeline version really shows you why this approach of automatic time tracking has been so helpful for me, because I do bounce around a lot. And one thing that I'll also note is that using automatic time tracking also lets you keep track of how you spend your non-work computer time, right? pretty good about doing, work only during the workday, but, obviously things will crop up. One thing I learned from automatic time tracking is the inordinate amount of time I spend checking the weather in the winter. I live in Vermont, so I am refreshing my weather app many times a day, seeing how many inches of snow are predicted. Are we going to get, slammed with a storm tonight? So it's also helpful to keep a little bit of track of how you're spending your non-work time on your computer as well. And one thing I'll note, I'm not going to show any slides with this, but they do also have really similar apps for your phone or for your tablet to think about, how you're spending your time on your other devices as well. So that's just a quick example of how it keeps track of individual, minutes spent in each file, each meeting, each report. And then if I go to the next slide here, so this I'm going to show you how it works when you actually want to sort things. So this is an example that I put together last year. On the left, you can see these couple of main tasks that I worked on during this day. And you go over on the right-hand side and you click and drag things over, and it does a good job if you have multiple things open at once, like two screens. It doesn't double count things. So I can drag both the data and the report into the same thing, and it'll be smart about making sure it doesn't double count. So I just go through my list from the day and I say, all right, what was actual project tasks? Let's drag them over. Let's put them in the right place so that we know, how much time we spent on this report, the associated data analysis. A lot of these Excel files are, data that I'm pulling for the reports that I'm working on. And you can do this both for billable time and non-billable time. You can have, as many categories and clients as you'd like. And I kind of scroll through at the end and say, all right, that's, pretty much the main stuff. It does also keep track of time spent in emails. It's a little clunkier perhaps than using it for big tasks like reports, but you can also use it for things like Outlook. All right, so I think that video is done there. So you can see how with that day, I kind of just went through and sorted all of my main tasks, pulled them over to the left, and now we've got a summary of how much time I spent on each of these deliverables. Oh, it's just going again. And then another thing I was just going to show, so as I said, I use Timely, so that's what I can tell you the most about, but I did want to also show a couple of things that I've come across online about some of the other automatic time tracking softwares out there. This is from Rescue Time, which looks like it has some really neat kind of back-end analysis options for you. Timely also is pretty great with this stuff, but it's neat to kind of look at the different programs that are available. This is another one from Rescue Time that's kind of sorting, the different categories of tasks that you've got, how much time you're spending on each. Some of them will also help you figure out, like, oh, it looks like I'm doing a lot of, emailing early in the day, or it seems like my non-billable time tends to fall, at the tail end. So it can also help you figure out kind of chronologically how you're spending your time.
Jesse, I
All
know
right. And that was the last. Yeah.
a question that came up before or in the chat here is about security. Do you feel like because you're connecting these apps with one another, perhaps your calendar or whatever's happening on your computer is going into Timely, is that a secure setup? Are you worried about your information being shared or used in inappropriate ways?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know it came up last year. I've done as much due diligence as I can when it comes to Timely. I feel, comfortable about the fact that it's not necessarily recording every, it's recording how much time I spend in each screen, not the content of those screens is my understanding. But I would also encourage others to do their due diligence here. It's something that I feel comfortable with. I generally don't work, pretty much all the data I work with is de-identified and not confidential. And again, my understanding is it's recording the time you spend in a screen, not necessarily the content of those screens. But I think it's a valid concern, and it's something that, you know, everyone kind of needs to vet for themselves, whatever different programs that they're working with. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Valid concern, something that I have, done my research on and I generally feel comfortable with. However, I think that's, kind of an important and ever evolving topic. So
Yeah,
I'll leave
sure.
it there. I know we can continue some of these discussions offline as well off the recording.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at some point I should be concerned about whatever data is out there on this quote unquote cloud that it's being controlled by. Um, the Toggle organization for us. I mean, I've always kind of looked at it like, who really cares? But I suppose that somebody could care. Um, that's at some point I need to probably have a more mature view of that. Another question that was put out there was more basic, which was, do I ask everybody to put in their time manually each day? And so, yeah, you are. I do it manually. I do everything manually, and I don't. So you can get behind. I know that during the AEA conference week, I got back and I had to like rethink back on a week and a half of time because I was busy getting ready to go, and then I went and I was just like focused and everything, and I got back and I went, okay, what happened in the last 2 weeks? And that's not a good position to be in. And we try and encourage everybody at Goshen to avoid getting to that place because it's really complicated to look back 2 weeks ago or longer and say, what was I doing that day? Even though you start by looking at your calendar. Now, other people do have it set up where their calendar of activities is placed directly into Toggle. I'm just talking about Toggle here, and you can code it. You still have to code it to make sure it's coded correctly, but it's kind of automated that way, and so that makes it a little bit easier. I don't do that. I don't know, mostly because I figured out how to do it, and I don't want to figure anything else. Um, any other questions that popped up in the chat? We're going to go into a full verbal chat, not just a typed chat, but if there's anything else that you want to share before we stop, Jesse.
I think that that's it for the recorded portion. There's, more we can kind of talk about offline as well. I know there's definitely some folks who've mentioned that they don't do time tracking, and I kind of would like to say that that is also, valid, and there are reasons to go with all of these approaches. So excited to have a little bit more discussion about all of that.
I can tell you it's not so much because we want to bill for our hours, which I know a lot of our folks here do. We think about it again, as I said, but previously, we do it from the perspective of knowing how we spend our time so that we can think about that, but also how we spend our time so we can think about it for the future. So if we have a project that is worth $20,000 a year and we bill it, I'm not going to do math in my head very well. Whatever the billing rate is, are we overworking that project based upon what we predicted our hours to be on that, or are we underworking it? Because hypothetically, we want to be not underworking it by a lot. We don't want to be overworking it either. And so, can we give some feedback to our colleagues on what's going on there? And they should be able to know that. Also, for the purposes of just understanding how much time off you've taken or how much time off you have left, it's really helpful, particularly when you have multiple members of a team and you want to provide support to them, but we also want to know how they're using their time that way, because we want to be flexible in our time as well. So I put up the upcoming sessions. You should be, I think I'm sharing it with everyone. Becky was talking about the rapid fire FAQs, which is next week. I'm going to be at a conference and I will be on the session. I'm pretty sure. I don't know why I wouldn't be. I'm going to walk out of the conference and go to my hotel room, and I'll be doing it from there because I don't want to miss it. If there's one session you want to attend each year, there's a couple of them. I think number one is Becky Garrow's FAQs because it's a lot of fun, and it's rapid fire as it says. And so you just don't know what's going to come out. And I know she answers all those questions. The other one that I would never miss because it's just so much fun is Meet the Pros, which is December 12th. And we do this every year. This used to be an in-person thing. Maybe we can do it in person again someday. Plan for 2 hours on December 12th because we have 8 individual people who will be sitting in kind of independent rooms, and you'll be able to kind of go from room to room. But this year, we've never done this before, but Nikki Bowman is here, and she's going to be with Kim Leonard and Madeline Brandt. I didn't see if any of those folks are here, but I know Nikki's here. Nikki, did you want to talk about that social entrepreneurship panel before we break? That's okay. You don't have to. She probably is in the car. Anyway, that's a great session that is developing. In fact, I'm meeting with those folks on Monday to figure out what we're talking about, but they're developing slides and they're excited about it. So that's going to be a good session too. And then, of course, the next core topic is December 5th, KPIs. And then I'll probably in about a week, I'll probably share everything that's coming up that we know for 2025 because we're already putting things together. All right, with that, go ahead and stop recording, MJ, and then we'll go into just the open conversation part. Bye, everybody on YouTube.